Witness the glory, the chaos, the rise and fall of Europe.
The crown. It's this glittering symbol, isn't it? Power, wealth, glory, everything you could ever imagine. But what if I told you that for the person actually wearing it, a medieval king, it was, well, anything but a fairy tale? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the dark truth behind the throne.
You know, when we picture a king, we probably think of grandeur, of absolute command, a life lived at the very pinnacle of society. But what if that's all it ever was? Just an image.
So on one hand, you've got the myth, the one we've all seen in movies, the absolute power, the shining armor, the unwavering loyalty. It sounds pretty great, right? But then, there's the reality. And the reality was constant fear, grinding discomfort, crushing paranoia, and more often than not, a violent death. It was a lonely, grim existence where being king was less about glory and a whole lot more about just surviving.
So let's start with the heart of this royal experience, the castle. We think of it as a palace, a center of luxury. But for the king, it was often more like an elaborate and deeply uncomfortable prison. That term, gilded cage, it just captures the whole paradox perfectly, doesn't it? It means an existence that looks amazing on the outside, all luxury and privilege, but from the inside, it's nothing but confinement and unhappiness. Every single trapping of wealth and power was just another golden bar, locking the king into a life he could never escape.
Yeah, that whole idea of royal luxury just completely falls apart when you look at the day-to-day. For starters, those castles, they were freezing, drafty fortresses with pretty much no sanitation to speak of. And the irony is, with all the people coming and going, they were total breeding grounds for plague and disease, sometimes even more dangerous than a peasant's hut. The food? Monotonous and heavily salted just to keep it from rotting. And on top of all that, the king was stuck in this endless oppressive cycle of ceremonial duties, all while probably dealing with chronic pain from old battle injuries, treated with medicine that could easily kill you faster than the wound itself. It was just bleak. But the physical misery? Honestly, that was just the beginning. Because if a king somehow managed to survive the awful conditions of his castle, he then had an even bigger challenge, surviving the people in it. And this is where we see how absolute power created an absolutely deadly paranoia.
Think about this for a second. We imagine kings worrying about foreign enemies, right? Forget that. For a medieval king, the real threat was way closer to home. It was the person sitting right across the dinner table, his brother, his cousin, even his own son. I mean, look at this number. It's estimated that a staggering 75% of a king's immediate male relatives could be considered direct rivals for the throne. 3 out of 4, just waiting for a moment of weakness. Can you even imagine living with that kind of constant, gnawing suspicion every single day?
There's this quote, supposedly from a royal advisor, that just says it all. Trust no one. The smiling courtier who pours your wine could be the same man who poisons it. Wow. Every single gesture, every friendly smile had to be picked apart and analyzed. This goes way beyond just being cautious. It was an all-consuming, 24/7 state of paranoia. And the terrifying part is, it was the only way to stay alive. Yeah, a king's life was basically one long, brutal political chess match, where a single mistake meant checkmate. There was zero room for error. A misplaced word, a bad alliance with the wrong noble, literally any sign of weakness could be the one move that cost you everything, your kingdom and your life. And this wasn't a game you played once in a while. It was every single day. Now, all that paranoia, that deep-seated fear, it didn't just stay locked up in the castle. No, it seeped out, and it poisoned the entire realm. See, to hold on to that fragile grip on power, a king had to project this image of absolute, terrifying strength. And that need for fear, it directly shaped the whole system of justice.
I mean, today, we think of justice as being about fairness, right? About finding out what's right and what's wrong. But for a medieval king, not a chance. Justice was simply an instrument of control. Its whole purpose wasn't to find the truth, it was to scare people into obedience. Because in that world, showing mercy was seen as being weak, and being seen as weak was a direct invitation for rebellion.
So what did this medieval justice actually look like? Well, it was basically a performance of cruelty. First, an accusation, often with zero evidence. Then came the trial, which wasn't about evidence at all. It was a trial by ordeal. The accused had to survive some life-threatening test, like carrying a piece of red-hot iron. And the verdict?
If your wound healed cleanly, great, God decided you were innocent. If it got infected, well, you were guilty. And finally, the sentence. This was always a big public show, mutilation or execution, designed to terrify everyone watching.
Okay, so all of this, the discomfort, the paranoia, the brutal justice, it all leads to one, frankly, terrifying conclusion. For all the blood and struggle it took to get the crown and keep it, wearing it was, statistically speaking, one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet.
And the numbers, they're just staggering. Take a look at this. 35% of medieval monarchs were assassinated. Another 30% died violently in battle. 25% died from disease. So what does that leave? A tiny, tiny sliver, just 10%. Only 1 out of every 10 medieval kings actually managed to die peacefully of old age. 1 in 10.
And that, right there, is the ultimate paradox. The crown promised immortality. It promised a place in the history books. But what it usually delivered was a gruesome and early grave. It was supposed to be the symbol of ultimate power, but in reality, it just made you the ultimate target. It wasn't a prize. It was a gilded trap, from beginning to end.
So after all of that, we're left with a big question, aren't we? The crown brought wealth, and it brought power, no doubt about it. But now that you've seen the reality behind the myth, the cold, the fear, the paranoia, the overwhelming chance of a violent end, would you ever have wanted to wear it? After seeing the true price of that power, you really have to ask yourself, was any of it worth it?